I was 28 when this happened, working as a freelance graphic designer and doing side gigs to stay afloat. I've never been reckless with money, but I've also never been particularly lucky with it. I'm the type who checks my bank balance before ordering food, who keeps receipts folded in my wallet just in case, even though I've never actually needed them. This happened in late 2022, during a stretch where inflation was hitting hard and freelance work was unpredictable. I'd just landed a decent-sized payment from a long-term client. Nothing life-changing, but enough to catch my breath. It was sent through a payment app, and because I'd had issues with my bank freezing transfers before, I decided to withdraw most of it as cash. That alone should tell you how anxious I already was. The day itself was unremarkable. Overcast, humid, one of those grey afternoons where everything feels slightly heavier than it should. I planned to stop at the ATM near a strip mall a few blocks from my apartment, grab groceries afterward, then go home and work. I'd used that ATM dozens of times. It was inside a small convenience store wedged between a nail salon and a closed-down vape shop. Bright fluorescent lights always smelled faintly of disinfectant and burnt coffee. Safe, boring, normal. At least, that's what I thought. I left my apartment around 3:30 p.m., headphones in, scrolling through messages while walking. The payment app notification was still sitting at the top of my screen, unread but visible, like a quiet reassurance. I remember feeling relieved more than excited. Relief that I wouldn't be juggling bills that month. The convenience store was mostly empty when I walked in. One guy was at the counter buying cigarettes, and the cashier was half watching something on a small TV behind the register. The ATM hummed softly near the back, next to a rack of cheap sunglasses and phone chargers. I stood there longer than usual, debating how much to withdraw. I finally settled on a number that felt practical, not flashy. The machine whirred and spit out a thick stack of bills. I folded them carefully and slid them into the inner pocket of my jacket. I didn't count them in public. That was the first thing I did right. I bought groceries next door. Nothing special, just basics. While checking out, I noticed a man behind me in line. Mid-30s maybe. Clean clothes, no obvious red flags. He smiled politely when our eyes met. I remember thinking he smelled faintly of aftershave, sharp and expensive. Outside, I loaded my groceries into a reusable bag. The street was busier now, late afternoon traffic starting to build. I put my headphones back in and started walking home, taking my usual route, past a closed auto shop, then down a quieter side street lined with apartment buildings. Everything still felt normal, too normal. I noticed him again near the auto shop. At first, I didn't register it as anything. People walk the same routes all the time. Cities overlap. But something about the timing felt off. I'd stopped to adjust my bag, and when I started walking again, I saw him behind me, the same man from the grocery store. He wasn't close, maybe half a block back. He wasn't staring or acting strange, just walking, hands in his pockets, head down. I told myself I was being paranoid, but then I slowed my pace slightly, pretending to check my phone. He slowed too. I sped up, crossing the street at an odd angle instead of the crosswalk. He crossed a moment later. My stomach tightened, that subtle internal shift where your body reacts before your brain fully accepts it. I told myself he probably lived nearby, or parked on my street, or just happened to be heading the same way. The street grew quieter as I turned onto the side road. Fewer cars, fewer people. The sound of traffic dulled behind me. I could hear my own footsteps now, the soft rustle of my jacket. I glanced into a darkened storefront window and saw his reflection behind me, closer this time. He was holding his phone at his side, screen dark, like he didn't want it lighting up. When I turned my head slightly, he looked away quickly, too quickly. I considered ducking into a building, but I didn't want to look dramatic. I didn't want to be wrong. That hesitation is something I still replay. I changed direction abruptly, turning down a narrow alley that cut between two apartment buildings. I used it sometimes as a shortcut. I told myself that if he followed me there, I'd know for sure. The alley smelled like damp concrete and old trash. My footsteps echoed softly. I felt exposed, suddenly aware of how stupid this test was. Then I heard footsteps behind me. Not rushed, not casual, deliberate. I stopped walking. So did he. I turned around. He was maybe 15 feet away now, close enough that I could see the texture of his jacket, the faint crease between his eyebrows. He smiled again, but this time it didn't reach his eyes. "Hey," he said, holding up his hands slightly. "Didn't mean to scare you." My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. "You didn't," I lied. He glanced past me down the alley. "You dropped something back there." "I don't think so." He shrugged lightly. "Just thought I'd let you know." There was a pause, too long, heavy. Then his eyes flicked to my jacket pocket, the one with the cash. I don't know how he knew. I hadn't taken the money out, I hadn't counted it. But something in his posture shifted, subtle but unmistakable, predatory. "Look," he said quietly, stepping closer. "I don't want to make this weird." My mouth was dry. I could hear my pulse in my ears. "Then don't." He smiled again. "I saw you at the ATM." The words landed like a physical blow. "You took out a lot," he continued. "People don't realize how obvious those machines are." I took a step back. "I don't know what you're talking about." He laughed softly. "You don't have to lie. I'm not here to hurt you." That was when I noticed his right hand was clenched, knuckles pale, something metallic glinting between his fingers. Not a gun. Maybe keys. Maybe worse. "I just need you to hand it over," he said, "and we both walk away." I shook my head. My legs felt weak. "No." His expression hardened. "Don't make this difficult." I don't remember deciding to run. My body just did it. I bolted past him, shoving his shoulder hard enough to knock him off balance. He swore loudly and grabbed at my jacket, tearing the fabric but missing the pocket. I ran. Out of the alley, onto the main street, screaming for help. I didn't look back. I didn't stop until I was inside a crowded cafe, gasping, hands shaking so badly I could barely hold the door. When I finally did look outside, he was gone. The police arrived 20 minutes later. They took my statement, nodded sympathetically, asked if I could describe him. I did. Hair, height, jacket, voice. It all sounded flimsy when spoken aloud. They told me there were no cameras in the alley. The convenience store's footage was inconclusive. They suggested he'd probably moved on to another target. That was supposed to make me feel better. I went home with a torn jacket, groceries forgotten, cash still in my pocket, but feeling radioactive. I didn't sleep that night. Every sound outside my window made my chest tighten. For weeks after, I avoided ATMs. I switched routes constantly. I checked reflections obsessively. I hated that someone could look at me and see money, vulnerability, instead of a person. The money was gone within a month. The fear lasted much longer. It's been over 2 years now. Sometimes, when I'm waiting in line at a store, I catch the faint scent of that same sharp aftershave. Every time my stomach drops. I never saw him again. but I still wonder how long he'd been watching me that day, or how many other people he noticed before me. And I never, ever withdraw cash in public anymore.